Okay, the track is green right now, so take a few laps to get the tyres up to temperature. Try and feel your way around.
Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to a brand new video here today, and I am very excited because today we've got our very first F1 2021 gameplay that I've recorded, my first ever racing laps on this game, and we've got a lot to talk about in this 15-minute video because from the preview build, I'm actually only allowed to make 3 15-minute videos, so you're going to be seeing 3 videos over the course of the next few days from this preview build, and we've got a lot to talk about. So let's delve into it. So straight off the bat, this was my first outing on the game. I chose to go out in the Red Bull, driving as Verstappen actually in a practice session to get a better feel of the car versus time trial. In terms of the initial feeling, familiar handling, I would say, but you can feel the difference in the tyres, which is something that Lee Mather told us at a preview event, that the Tyre Model has been taken a little bit more towards the simulation side, that there's going to be a bit more of a direct feel to the car with the tyres, with the way they are on this year's game. Certainly felt that with the force feedback. I think in general the tyres I just felt were a bit different. You can kind of lean on them a bit more is the kind of best way I can describe them. Now, like I said, I can only make 3 15-minute videos, so we need to really get through all the info here, so I'm just going to rattle through. Visually speaking, can't really comment too much on it. It's a work in progress build. My PC used to run F1 2020 on Ultra completely. It's running this build on high/Ultra, so I think that there's more to go, and the visual fidelity for the next gen is going to be seen fully, I think, even in this transition year. Audio-wise, you'll hear the engine sounds are slightly different every year. The audio team at Cody's like to improve it, so watch on through this entire video. I have gameplay from different cars with different engines and different circuits here. We're starting off, though, with the Belgium Grand Prix. We're now hopping into a quick little race. Not going to do the whole one, obviously. Only got 15 minutes, so we're going to try and cram in as much as we can. But this is where things got interesting in terms of the gameplay and first impressions from it, because you'll notice on the right, the bottom right there, the fuel mixture was in standard and it was greyed out, because on this year's game, like within real life, they obviously did that ban on engine modes being changed throughout a Grand Prix weekend. There is no more rich mix in the game. When you're in practice, you can go from standard down to lean mixture, but then in qualifying and the race, it is locked off into standard. And I assume maybe towards the end of the race, if you're running out of fuel, you could then put it into lean. It'll open that up. But in the game menu settings, it also shows that the lean mixture will really slow down your car, because there's an option, if you're a more casual player, to lessen the blow of lean mixture on the engine power. So that's a big difference. That's going to mean that maybe ERS is even more important on this year's game. And then on top of that, there is a new damage model, which I was able to show off there by purposely just going deep and hitting Hamilton there for the sake of the video and showing you that bit of the heads-up display. And now we're going to watch on with this gameplay, and you're going to see the difference, kind of how slow I am with this damage. So now you can get damage to your floor and the bargeboard area. You can see those extra bits on the heads-up display, and this is something we've been talking about for about 2 years or 3 years now, in terms of in the game ideas videos, saying that we want more damage in the game. We want the floor to be damaged, the bargeboards, and you can see how much of a difference the floor damage is making in terms of raw power. Obviously, I'm not deploying ERS, but then you're going to see in the corners, especially now, I'm just unable to keep it with Vettel, which I should be able to in a Red Bull car, and then the next right-hander understeering, and then getting the back end stepping out, and then on the curb, and the Ferrari dive bombs me down the inside, and you really felt that. And remember, these bits of the cars can't be repaired, and my engineer actually said be careful not to damage it anymore, because obviously you can't change that in the pit stop. Here's another confirmation. In practice, I tried it out, broke the front wing, eventually broke the tyre, and then the tyre rebounded and broke the bargeboard and the floor. So there's 2 elements to the floor: the outer floor, the inner floor, and then the bargeboard area. So 3 new areas you can break the car with on the sides, and that is damage you just really don't want to ever get, but you can now in F1 2021. And so now in the menu, like I alluded to, we've now got a low fuel mode setting, so if you want that to be more realistic or a little bit easier for you in terms of how much the power is affected by going into lean mixture, let's say if you start losing some fuel in the race. The same thing then with car damage and car damage rate. There's now that extra setting of car damage rate to really fine-tune the damage system. And then also at the same time, there is now a difference in weather accuracy. You can have the approximate, which is the realistic one, or you can have the complete accurate one. So I suggest maybe for league racing, maybe an F1 Esports they'll put on accurate, but then in career mode where you want that kind of, you know, that real life sort of, you know, vagueness about the weather, you can put it on approximate and have the usual way the weather system is. Moving the gameplay now onto a small clip in the Mercedes car. I'm going to try and show you as many cars as I can in this one video, basically in a practice session driving as Hamilton on the hard compound tyre, and this again kind of showed me the Tyre Model very much is a very different F1 2020. Obviously I was just coming out the pit lane as well in practice with some fuel, so there's also a pinch of salt of how much of a difference there was, but it felt like you could feel how hard that tyre was, and compared to the soft compound and medium one, that this tyre is going to take a little bit of time to heat up, rubber in, and again I think that's more because they've changed the model a bit more to be more sim-like, and so you're going to see that difference between the compounds maybe, and you can't just do the same sort of, you know, good stint on hards that you could do on mediums maybe because of that difference of the actual compound. We now move through into Spain with the Ferrari. The Ferrari in this build though I think is the FOM chassis, so the audio might be different and is a bit more realistic, but the actual model of the Ferrari in this build is the FOM generic chassis, because I don't think it's got its missing horns on the top of the chassis. But going back and talking about settings for a second, there's basically a new, in the menu system, you'll see there's a new expert race style. So in 2020, we had casual and standard. Now we have expert. For reference, essentially most content creators like myself, league racers, esports drivers, basically if you play the game every day or every few days, your settings will probably end up being an expert. But it just gives that difference an easier way for players to slowly build up and have that difference in the way they play the game, which, like I said before, is really good. I've always said they just needed more options in the menus to allow that customizability. We now move on to a gameplay intermediate around Australia in the Alpine, driving as Fernando Alonso. Here you can see visually, I think they've done a really good job in the rain. The texturing on the track is so much more detailed. In terms of the handling, again, with the kind of differing tyre model, it did feel slightly different to what we were used to in 2020. The intermediates is still a very difficult tyre to drive with, because like in real life, you know, it's that very, you know, weird difference between dry and full wet, so you're kind of constantly on edge, basically wanting to not drop the rear end in the case of me, and you know, it's a little bit iffy into a lot of corners. You're not as confident, and the next clip along is going to be with the full wets with the McLaren of Lando at Silverstone. Now I actually felt like I was more stable on those full wets, but I think that may have just been also the McLaren being a better car, obviously in-game versus the Alpine. But again, you can see texturing wise with the puddles, the kind of darker patches, the, you know, the lines as well. I think they just stepped that up a lot more than what it was in last year's game. And then even the droplets of rain, I feel, have been improved on the side of the chassis and the tyres. We can see having the rear end step, like I said, ironically saying that I felt more stable losing the rear end there, but catching the car. And actually that's one thing, I actually felt like you could catch the car. It was a bit more intuitive of catching the car because there was a bit more feedback of the tyre. Like before, I felt like you may have lost the car and you just kind of floated and aquaplaned off and span, whereas now I was finding maybe I was feeling a little bit more from the tyre, and I could have that like sixth sense of, okay, I need to, you know, counter steer, catch it a bit, switch a bit and catch it better. So I think it's obviously going to take some time. You know, we've had a very limited time with this preview build, and I can only show you 15 minutes worth of footage, but I think as time goes on, we'll all kind of get into the groove of it. Just speaking out a little bit about other things whilst this clip goes on with the McLaren at Silverstone. The heads-up display is very different on this year's game. You'll notice on the bottom right. Now, with the default, the heads-up display is actually in the middle, because you can see the way the heads-up display is shaped on the gear and where the RPM and the miles per hour is. The way it's shaped is it actually fits nicely into the actual cutout of where the driver sits in the F1 car. But for me personally, I actually don't like the heads-up display there, because visually speaking, for you guys, for gameplay videos, for career mode, visually, I want to see more of my car. I want to see my helmet. I want to see all of that on display. So for my videos and my personal preference, I move the heads-up display to the right. Default actually comes in the middle, so that's just a little note on a difference you might be seeing from my video to other creators' videos. We now get into a quick little race start here at Silverstone in the wet, now driving as Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin, looking pretty nice, although I don't think I actually customized the T-cam here. But I would say I'm not really meant to be commenting too much on the AI, because it is an early build that's still being fine-tuned, but I think early impressions, I think the AI are even more aggressive than they were in F1 2020, which is great. It seemed like they were going for race moves. You can't maybe see it in this gameplay, but back in the gameplay earlier at the very start of the video with Belgium, and also you'll see later at Bahrain when I drive in the Alfa Romeo, it seems like they're a bit more willing to go for the dive on the inside, which is good to see, but obviously still being fine-tuned, so won't comment on that too much more. But going back to the fact that we now don't have a rich mix in the game, and you can't change your fuel mode in the middle of the race. All you've got is the brake differential and the diff of the car. So that's that's it. And then you have the ERS, obviously. So I think from what I've played so far, and even these small little bursts of races, I can already tell ERS is going to be even more crucial, which is a problem for me because I've never been that great at saving ERS on the default cars. I'm okay once we've maxed out cars in my team, but with the base level of ERS, with the way it drains, that's going to be something you're going to have to really watch out for, and that's going to be a powerful tool because now you can't bump it up into rich mix to, you know, get that extra bit of speed. You're going to have to use ERS. And then also with the engine temperatures, that's now interesting because there's no now rich mix to, you know, overheat the engine, but I feel like the engine just now overheats in standard mixture if you get too close to a car and you just sit there behind a car. So you have to watch out for that. Just like in real life, you're going to have to make sure you back off, maybe cool the engine down, because if you just keep on running around with a hot engine, you're just going to not be able to actually race them properly because you're going to be losing some power there. So I think the gameplay wise, in terms of the impression I get, is it is long term when all of us start playing 50% races. You know, you've got league races going on at esports drivers where you play career mode multiple seasons. You know, long term we're going to have to find that way of actually, you know, driving like it is in real life. You know, backing off a bit, cooling the car maybe, then going for the attack. Is the impression I'm getting from these changes basically in the gameplay. And then the damage system, that's massive because I think that also changes. You know, you now maybe don't want to be making that kamikaze dive because you can now damage your floor. You can now legitimately damage your bargeboard area. So that's going to be massive for racing AI, but also league racing and esports. Maybe we're going to see a little bit less kamikaze dive and aggression and a bit more realistic, you know, kind of sending it and floating the car in rather than making a darting dive and knowing that the damage system is not going to penalize you on the side of the car, so you can use other cars as walls. Now you can't because the damage is there. So now for this last bit of this Mercedes clip at Australia, you're going to see I go wide here in a sec on the chicane, again showing maybe the way the tyre kind of interacts with everything. It's very, very sensitive. Like, I had no chance of catching that. Again, we have a massive crash there, and you can see the damage coming in with the bargeboard area and the floor area all in yellow. And if I wasn't out of the race, that would have been basically me trundling around in the back. And now here's a replay camera. The replay cameras and the broadcasting and the showrooms and stuff, they all have ray tracing now on the consoles and on PC, which is a really great thing. Obviously, with the PC, you have to have an RTX card or, you know, a card that can do ray tracing, but that is there also on the consoles, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. Now, talking about the next gen and old gen, so both next gen and old gen have seen an uplift in terms of visuals. There is going to be a feature parity between the two generations, so you're not going to be missing out on any big features between the generations. It may just be a case of loading times are a bit different, and maybe there's a slight little visual fidelity difference, but features wise there's no difference. There's parity there. In terms of the next gen consoles, there's some performance and graphics options to try and get 120 FPS, which is really good because, trust me, it makes a difference having that extra frame rate when it comes to a racing game, especially. The usual stuff with the next generation of consoles, faster loading times. You know, the Xbox Series X especially loads so quickly, but the PS5 as well. 3D spatial audio now as well on the consoles and PC. You may have noticed it, but you'll notice it for yourselves once you get to play it. Obviously, I've had to try to talk through all this information, but there was that 3D effect of when I was driving through a corner, I could hear the engine sounds kind of behind me wearing my headset. So there's that even better audio sphere you're getting driving around the circuit. And then a specific thing for the PS5, you'll know if you have a PS5 or you've seen, you know, features. The PS5 has a very special controller that has kind of rumble strip, and that will also be supported with F1 2021. So if you're a pad user on the PS5, I think you'll have a better playing experience. I personally have already seen a better playing experience using that controller on F1 2020 on the PS5. So for sure in 2021 you'll have that as well. And then with Xbox, you have the smart delivery system with Xbox. So if you get the game, I think on Xbox One, X, and S, it will be smart delivered to the Series X. So whilst I've been talking about that, just showing you the game menus and showing you each kind of car and driver in the menu. Love the new menu style, by the way. And graphically, you can see all the character models really, really crisp, really decent. So that has been my first ever gameplay video of F1 2021. It was hard work to try and pack in that much, and there are 2 more videos to come, and the second one is going to be all about Breaking Point, My Team career mode, Driver career mode, and the 2-player co-op career. So if you're new around here, do get subscribed for that. Smash the like button if you did enjoy this gameplay video. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.